Sahara Pirie, and we are here to discuss a conversation around understanding stress behaviors in children. Just wanted to highlight that it's also Teacher Appreciation Week and Give Big, and so we are so excited at Sound Discipline to be doing the work that we do. So, Sahara, would you like to just quickly introduce yourself and give our viewing audience some insight into who you are and what you stand for?
Sure. I, first and foremost, I think I'm a parent. I have a young adult by now. I have been teaching parenting classes for about 20 years, and I have some training in Adlerian psychology, and have just mostly been diving into what is it to be a parent? How can we have more joy? How can we have more understanding and bring closeness in families, peace in families? So that's been my drive.
Wonderful. And you also have a passion around teen parenting as well, too.
I do.
Yeah.
I do indeed. I am particularly fond of working with parents of teens.
Yes, awesome. So let's just go ahead and dive into our conversation today. We are in the midst of a lot of complexity, lots of change. Here in Washington State, we just, found out school's not going to be back in session. And I think, most states are probably feeling that as well. And so one of the questions that I had for you is what might be happening in the brain of children who are experiencing this change and this chaos and this transition?
Yeah, so, kids feel their parents' stress, and parents are stressed, especially, I can't imagine any circumstance where with a parent with a school-aged child right now that isn't feeling extra stressed with a child at home, having to manage work or not work, depending on which those are. Both of those are stressful, trying to make those things match up. And if we look at how the brain manages stress, let's just take a really quick model and look at the brain in the palm of the hand. I got to figure out where the camera is here, guys. Sorry.
Right. It's going to be right in front of you.
Yeah.
So don't look at the camera. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. So if we turn sideways and we can see how this model might match up, where this is the neck and this is the head. So if we look at this as the brain, as a model for the brain, we can look at the bottom of the palm of the hand and the wrist here as what we call the reptilian brain, or the oh my goodness, my brain just went blank. I'm nervous, guys. I'm just going to name it.
But that's stress. So what we're actually witnessing now is the impact of stress on the brain, right?
So help me out, Karimah. What do we call this?
Absolutely. So this is the base of the brain. It's going to be the brainstem.
Thank you. The brainstem. Yep. So the brainstem is where your autonomic nervous system is. It's where all the automatic things that happen in your body, like breathing, your heart rate, and so forth. It's also where fight, flight, fright takes place in this. This is the part of the brain that says, okay, I'm in charge now. It's an emergency situation. If we fold our thumb over and we've got the midbrain here, the midbrain has emotions. It's where it surveys for safety. So it's the radar for fight, flight, fright. And it's also where memories are stored. And if you fold your fingers over and tuck them in here, you're going to have the cortex of the brain. That's where you've got sensory input and motor output. And then in the front here, where your middle fingers touch your palm and touch that thumb, the midbrain, that's where you've got what we call executive function. And that's what we think of as thinking in the brain. So it's where we make decisions. It's how we creatively problem solve. It's how we regulate our emotions. It is how we make sense of the world and put it all into place in a highly functioning way.
Yep.
When we experience stress, our resources diminish, and things that we know, like brainstem, evaporate from our brain.
That quickly, though.
Quickly, right. So if something big happens, we can flip our lid, and we can then not have access to this, because all of our resources are going down here to what our brain perceives as a survival situation. And different levels of stress are going to affect this differently. And for more information, if you're interested in that and want more information, there's a great video that Dr. Bruce Pirie put out a couple of weeks ago, and we can put that in the links for you. to give you a little more understanding of the kinds of things that change and what kind of resources become more or less available depending on how kind of gathered or calm we are. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So everybody right now is experiencing a fair amount of stress, and it's not our usual stress. It's not what we would call good stress. It's not the stress that, invites us to, it's not like working out so that you get stronger, right? It's an unpredictable stress. It's a little bit extreme and it's prolonged. It's long, right? So our stress levels are higher. Our ability, all of our resources, not just our kids, all of our resources are taxed. Right. And that moves us into a different area of how we respond to things. So pair that with how we all process information. So I'm going to step a little bit out of this model and move into how we make sense of the world. We perceive something, we see it literally, and then we make an interpretation about it. And then we establish beliefs and we make decisions and behave in certain ways.
Right.
The thing is that the interpretations that we make then filter how we see the world. So if I believe I'm an unwanted child, I'm going to then perceive things out in the world that match that data.
Right.
And come in and then going to kind of build the data. I'm building my story. I'm proving it to be true. And that's just the way.
Confirmation for the things that you already believe to be true.
Yeah. And in neurobiology layman terms, we call that what fires together, wires together. Right. That makes sense. So if you take a child somewhere in some developmental stage of their brain development, if they're really young, they're still learning all kinds of things. If they're an adolescent, they're moving into choosing what's going to be important to them for life in their in their resources. So they're going to prune parts of the executive function that they don't use anymore. Like, let's say they did 6 sports when they were a kid, and now they're going to focus on 1 or 2. So the talents and skills that they built in those other sports are going to fall away as they focus on their new sport, right? So what we practice. So they're going to, it's called pruning in the brain. Yeah. But as I hear a story as a young child, and I'm now in a situation where I'm displaced from my school, and I'm and my mom and dad are both working from home. They're sharing an office. They're both in Zoom meetings all day. And I need a computer too to do my schoolwork and all this. And there's just this incredible disruption of structure on everybody's part. Everybody's world been disrupted. So everybody's under a bit of stress. And then how do I make sense of that as a young child? What did I do wrong? Or what's happening here? Or when I go in and I ask my mom for help and she's short with me because she's in the middle of a meeting, I might take that personally. I might say, what did I do wrong? And so forth. And because I don't have enough world experience or life experience to understand that this isn't about me, I might make it about me. And then I might make some decisions about myself. This is just an example. Of the kind of processing that goes on in younger brains. Actually, it goes on in older brains too. But we really see it's really, I think, magnified in the decisions that kids make.
And does that have to do with the fact of the prefrontal cortex not being fully developed in young people? Because you said it happens both in young people and adults, but maybe not to the extent in adults.
Well, it has to do with what fires together, wires together. So how we perceive the world, and then how we're going to interpret new data based on our belief about the world. Okay. So I might interpret something as as mom's remark or dad's remark, as I'm interrupting them or as I'm asking for help, which is how I see that, right? And I don't see it as an interruption. I see it, I need help. As I'm doing that, I might interpret their response as I've done something wrong, or I am not connected to you. I don't feel the love, right? And in response to that, I might choose a behavior. Right? I might decide that I'm going to come Zoom bomb your meeting. I might decide that I'm going to make noise in the other room, so you have to come out. I might decide that I'm going to say something nasty to you, right? All these pieces of all these behaviors based on how am I going to get you back involved with me?
But they're not consciously thinking that, though.
Not at all. No,
Okay.
This happens without, right.
Yeah.
This is our brain's way of, we are really wired for connection. And when we don't feel connection, we look for ways to get it. And often we settle for ways that don't bring us real connection, but bring us kind of energy or juice that get adults involved, or even friends back involved. Right. So in adolescence, this is going to show up differently because I'm not so interested in getting my parents involved. I'm busy building my tribe outside of my family.
Right.
I'm preparing to leave the nest and build my own relationships.
So how does the stress impact, you kind of touched on it a little bit, the parent-child dynamic, but then also the sibling dynamic. So what might be showing up in the sibling dynamic and the parent-child dynamic?
Well, one opportunity when you have a sibling is that you have a playmate and a co-conspirator, you might say, right? You've got, I mean, sibling fights are a great tool to get mom and dad involved, or mom involved, or, you know, dad and dad involved, however, whatever your family looks like, right? Get the parents involved. It's just this, you know, this distraction that pulls adults in. So it's any time that there's more stress and I need to feel a bond, I can co-conspirate with my sibling to do that in a really effective way from the sense of getting parents involved, right?
That's a great word, effective.
Effective. Yeah, and remember that parents have a set of priorities and perceptions, and kids have a set of priorities and perceptions, and they're often different. And the other thing that happens when adults are stressed, when parents are stressed, is that they lose some of their ability to get into their kids' shoes. They lose some of the ability to understand why what the kid wants to do is important to them, and why what I want the kid to do might not land on them. And it works in both ways. Like do homework or
They're not interested maybe right now in that. So then what?
And not only may they not be interested, but they might be in a place where learning is pretty difficult, right? When I'm like this, or certainly like this, I don't have space in my brain for that executive function. This is where learning happens.
Yeah.
Right. And if I'm not here, it's not, so it's not available to me. And so my learning, I might study or stare at it and come away. And when you test me, I don't know anything. I can't remember it for more than 3 seconds.
Right. So what insight, might on that particular piece, might you offer to parents? Because their priority is, you know, I want you to stay abreast of your academics. You know, I want you to succeed in school, even with the changes and things like that. So some parents are pretty adamant around, you know, that's a priority for them, and they're holding on for dear life.
And
that's their kid.
And also, it's a really stressful time. And when we're stressed, our fears rise up. And parents, we really do want what's best for our kids. What we think is best for them and what they think are best for them are not often the same. And often parents believe that a path to success in life is through education.
Yeah.
And so this is saying our world is in a stress state. And now you're not going to study? What's wrong with you? Right? And the kid's like, what is wrong with me? I can't do anything right. Right? So there's this dynamic that's feeding off of itself. So I have two suggestions that I suggest you do both of them. And one is activities to help regulate. So anything that helps your nervous system get calm again. And those are things like good sleep, good eating habits, anything with any movement with rhythm in it. It can be, you know, tapping, it can be running, it can be a basketball hoop in the driveway. All those movements, exercise, those are all really helpful. Breathing, being focused on your breath, just feel yourself breathe in and breathe out, breathe in and breathe out. That has a calming effect on the nervous system. So if you can do those together at first to help your child co-regulate, it will be helpful for you too, because co-regulation actually happens before self-regulation. So kids need to learn how to do this, and they start learning this from, when they're babies. But if that's disrupted anywhere along the line, then you have to teach again. So really this co-regulation, and then enabling them to move into self-regulation where they can start to recognize, I'm a little bit uncomfortable. How can I get back and start developing these tools? And in schools, we say, do these 5 times a day, do them once an hour, and this is a great practice. And if you need a break from your video conferencing, come up once an hour and get the whole family together and do an exercise, and have the kids pick them and lead them and so forth. And just to plug that we have, if you don't know, if you want ideas for that, Sound Discipline has self-regulation tool cards that you can download, and maybe Mary can put those in the comments so that people know where to find them. You were going to ask a question.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was, but
okay. I'm on a roll now.
There was one, when you were talking about co-regulation, can you speak really briefly and clearly around mirror neurons and co-regulation and how that works? And then I remember the other question. It was around why so many times a day do we need to do the regulation? The benefit of that with the to the prefrontal cortex and.
So let's do a quick little thing on mirror neurons. So this will be really helpful if the people in the audience are looking at me, not you, for this one. So keep your eyes on me. And what I'd like you to do is take a deep breath. And then maybe stretch your right arm up and down. And stretch your left arm up and down. And then now I'd like you to make a circle. This camera.
I know it's like
I'm camera impaired. A circle with your hand like that, and then go ahead and place that on your chin. So some of you may have placed it on your cheek instead of your chin,
right? And
that is the result of mirror neurons. So if your eyes are on me, I am actually training you to the mirror neurons in your brain are doing what you see. It is it's part of how we learn. It's a very important part of how we learn. So as we model things, then we help our kids learn. And so this is part of why co-regulation is so important. So to do these things with your kids.
And it's not only good for the kid, it's good for us as adults.
Oh, it's absolutely helpful for us. And in fact, you might have felt a little bit of it just right now. Just, both sides of the body, getting both sides of the body involved in a rhythm is very, very regulating.
Absolutely.
Very helpful.
And then you said, you're advising that doing this regularly. And so
regularly.
Regularly is important, and not just a one and done, or only when the child is dysregulated and throwing a tantrum or upset, or, however it looks.
Yeah, that's very true. So what happens is we have to build a practice. We have to build what fires together, wires together for regulation in our brain. So we're deepening the neural pathway every time we do it. And then when we have less resources, it's easier to access because we've got a deeper neural pathway. So that's why so frequently. And to do it in times when you're not stressed so that you have it to fall back on when you are.
Right. It's more accessible to me when I've practiced it. And so now when I'm dysregulated or I feel that part of me welling up, then I can access it more easily. Like, hey, I've done this before when I know what makes me feel calm. I know what makes me feel connected to myself. So
yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful.
So but the second, there were 2 tools. That was the first one.
Okay.
Yeah. The second tool is connection. So when it comes down to how we move about in life and how we feel safe, it always comes down to relationship. Where do we have safe and sound connections? Where do we have relationships that we know we can fall back on, that we know we have safety? So anything that you can do to build connection. Now, I'm going to save the adolescent talk for a minute later because that's different and a little bit, it just looks different.
Okay.
So, but for younger kids, doing anything with them, helping them learn new skills, doing the skills with them, helping them have a dance party, playing Legos, doing side-by-side play, creative play, write a play together, those kinds of things. Have them write a new hand washing song for you and then teach it to the family. Those kinds of things. So just there are some activities and also meditating together, just sitting side by side or sitting knee to knee on the floor or whatever, and even just eye contact, 10 or 15 seconds of eye contact can be really challenging. But, it's kind of this message of, I love you. I've got you. You're here. We're in this together. This is hard. It is. And we've got each other. This is going to be helpful that we have each other. So that kind of connection. And then also, you don't have time to be with them all the time. You have your work that you still have to do, or you're looking for a job, or you're doing whatever else is and every adult is responsible for, which is, of course, is a lot. So teaching them new skills. You might do it with them the first time or first few times if they're young, and then ask them to take responsibility. And not from, I need you to take out the garbage, but from when you grow up and move out of this house and have a family of your own or live independently, whichever you would prefer, how are you going to know how to run the household? What skills are you going to need? Do you know how to do laundry? Do you know how to cook your own meals? Do you know how to balance a checkbook? So this is a great time to help them develop those life skills, and they can contribute to the family so that you have less work to do. And that can be really super. I mean, if it's framed in this framework that is, I need your help, and this would be really helpful, and this will help reduce the stress in the family and make more time for us, then it's very different than, I need you to make your bed, I need you to cook dinner, right? It's just a very different message. And so how you deliver that message is really it will really make a difference in the outcome.
Well, it sounds like one's an invitation and one's a mandate.
Right. And that, which brings us to adolescence. Because teens pretty much know that you can't make them. And so, so so it really has to be an invitation. And it might even be an invitation of, what would you like to do to contribute to make this easier, to help the family? How would you like to help the family? And they might come up with ideas that you had no idea would be helpful. And it's really important to listen with curiosity and to ask with curiosity.
Right.
And otherwise, your kids, your teens may want to say, I'm just going to the park with my friends. And you're thinking, no, you can't go to the park with your friends, because when you guys are a group, you're going to forget what 6 feet is.
Right.
So how I want you to have fun with your friends. How can we do this in a way that it maintains social distancing? And how are you guys going to remember? And what games can you invent that you can do this way? And so really inviting them to come up with the solutions. The more they come up with solutions, the more compliance, the more commitment on their part you will get.
Okay, great. So did you have anything else to add around in specific examples of creating connection? You said several earlier, so I just want to make sure that more that you would.
Yeah, I think, in terms of developing skills, there's an option. And in terms of having family fun, there are some options. Having the kids come up with solutions. You need to spend some one-on-one time with each of your kids. You can tag team with a partner if you have a partner. But it's going to be really hard to build relationship without having some one-on-one time. And you can also have group time.
Yeah.
And one more thing is that when we're stressed like this, we can't meet the level of capacity that we meet when we aren't stressed, because our resources are being consumed in other ways. So to be gentle with production. You didn't get all of this done.
Thank you for saying that.
For yourself,
I think I felt
and for your kids.
Collective sigh of relief. Did you hear it?
Yeah.
Production, just
it has to go down.
Yeah, do your best. And your best may look differently based on your capacity in any given moment, on any given day. And sometimes we have such pressures that either are coming externally or that we're putting on ourselves. And so we get to just really be in this time of grace and compassion and know that, yeah, when your lid is flipped or almost flipped, your production is just not going to be what you expect it to be. And your kids' production is not going to be what you expect it to be.
And even if you've managed to stay really calm through all of this, your production is going to be down because the stress is consuming resources.
Yep.
And so the expectations for yourself and the expectations for your kids, let them move. Let them move.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Sahara.
Thank you, Karimah.
The insight around understanding stress behaviors, not only in kids, but also in adults and the relational dynamics that come into play as a result of, this collective stress and trauma that we're all experiencing on different levels, granted, but it's definitely there. So really appreciate that, and really appreciate those who are tuning in. We've got some comments in the chat. And, Andrea is saying, also dance party is an opportunity to
dance party and have them pick the playlist, right?
Yeah.
Have them pick the playlist. I just, I had one more thought. I've lost it because the dance parties was such a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have them pick the playlist, have them contribute. I mean, there's lots of things and ways that connection can take place, and just be creative, creative.
Yeah.
Maybe something they all think about together. How can we build more connection within our family?
And note that your ability to be creative is going to be a little bit taxed. So you're going to need more time and more play to get there.
Yep. And Andrea is actually saying doing your best during COVID it's not going to be the same. So your best pre-COVID might have been something, right? But during COVID, it's gonna be different. So being mindful about that. So thank you so much for your insight. It's been always love talking with you and sharing and going back and forth. And so I just also wanted to just thank our viewing audience out there that are watching today, and just our community partners and parents and caregivers and educators, and just want to invite everybody to our parent support network that we have on Thursday at 7 o'clock. And if you would like to register, you can register via Eventbrite, and that link will be in the comments for you to register. And it's just I think last week we talked about sibling relationships and conflict, and there were some really powerful tools that folks could begin to explore and to use. And then parents were, chiming in about some of the challenges they're experiencing. So it was really great opportunity for parents to come together and learn more about, themselves and positive discipline and what sound discipline might be offering. So we encourage everybody to attend that. So, all right.
Thanks for making it easy, Karimah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. We're signing off. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.